Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Focus on DatoCMS course. I am Marcelo Lund, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Today, I'm going to show you how to work with the Media Manager in DatoCMS and how to get the most out of it, or into it, both. So enough of that. Why don't we go ahead and jump right in? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show my screen here. And here we go. So there we are in DatoCMS. Let me organize some of my stuff here because I have a list that I want to make sure I go through everything. So let's start out with the interface of the Media Manager. And obviously it's located right here where it says Media. Very easy. Just go there. Once you go there, you'll see basically all your media. Now yours is going to look different because you have different media, but it may be depending if you have filter sets set up, and I'll show you how to do that. Just a variety of things. So why don't we start with the actual interface, and let's go through the top all the way down to the bottom. So right here, you have three sizes that you can show your media view below by. This is the equal size. So in other words, every box here will be the same size, and it just shows you a thumbnail of whatever's in there. So next to these boxes, you have the ability to resize the thumbnail. So if I go, for example, larger, you can see that they do become larger, but the size of the box remains the same for all of them. Okay. Next up is to view them by the aspect ratio and size of the image. So for example, you can see that this box aspect ratio is 16:9, where this one is a 4:3 or 4:4, whatever you want to call it, 1:1. So basically this just puts them in the actual size and aspect ratio of the asset that's in there. And we're going to get into why this is a PDF and what's showing here. We'll get into all of that without a problem in just a minute. But then the final one, which is the one that I use the most, is the detail. Okay, and in the detail, you have a variety of information you can see all at once. So for example, I can see my smart tags, I can see copyright information, and you can control the columns you see here by clicking on this cogwheel right there. And then you can move things around. So for example, if I want manual tags over resolution, you'll see that now we have manual tags here and resolution there. If I put it back, you'll see that it goes back. And then you have other columns, right? So let's say you want to see updated at, and I can put it way at the beginning. So now we have, here's my updated at column that shows me when everything was updated. So if that's important to you, you can remove any columns. For example, let's say I don't care about the copyright. I'll click on delete. Maybe the smart tag's gone. So now we just have that. Okay, and that is your ability to see all the column data that's important to you by clicking on the detail icon right there. And again, this slider is just for the actual thumbnails, the size of the thumbnails you can see. So usually I display it like this just because for me it's easier to manage my media this way, but other people may find this easier or this one better. Up to you. Okay, so we cover that. Let me show you. Next to this is we have the sorting, and you can sort ascending or descending by a variety of criteria. So recently created, least recently created. I love how they worded that. Biggest file size, smallest file size, highest resolution, lowest resolution, a variety of ways, right? If you want to go A through Z, you can see them by the name, basically. And then you can hit Z through A through Z, ascending, descending. Usually I'll go by recently created, or we'll do usually file name. We'll do that. Next to that, you have the number of assets you have in your media manager. So I'll just show you the number of assets. The upload new assets button, very simple. When you click on it, it'll let you upload basically. You don't see the little pop-up, but it's just your OS pop-up that just shows up. And then you can select a file to upload. Alrighty, let's just make sure We have everything covered here. Searching wise, when you search, it'll search not just by the file name, but it'll search for any content inside the file name. So for example, if we look at this PNG, and I'm going to go through this whole process here, but it'll search by title, caption, alternate text, any kind of categorization you have, anything like that. So for example, if I say pepperoni right there, and we type in pepperoni here, we should get the one right there. If I type in Kirk, we'll have one image, which is Captain Kirk. Okay. If I type in Spock, well, if I type it in, it'll search through all the media and, oh, because I misspelled it, Spock. There we go. Spock, and there are two images where I put in Spock as a meta tag, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Anyway, that's searching. Next up, I'm going to clear that up. The next step is something that's really powerful that I really enjoy, which is the filters. So for example, let's say I want to add that says, show me anything that is of type, and you have a variety of filters. Type, in use meaning that it's being in use by an entry, right? So here you have 3 images that are being used in entries. Has a certain type of resolutions. It could be is not, also manual tags, smart tags, colors, orientation. One that I find very useful is, for example, colors. So for example, let's say, hey, show me, first of all, show me everything that's an image. Next up, so that shows me everything that's an image. Next up, and if we look at this, let's get rid of that for a minute. You can see everything that's an image. Now, I'm going to say, show me where colors contains any of red. And there's only 2 images that contain red in it. And that is based on the, if we look at an image, it'll be based on this colors here. And then I'll show you how to get that through the API playground as well. But that's really cool because now I have red images, let's just say, or contains any of red and let's say blue. So now we'll have multiple because this contains blue as well. Now we can save this filter. If we're going to reuse this over and over, we'll say save filter, and we'll call it images with red and blue in them. Like that. Now you can make this private only to you, this filter, or you can make it where it's shared with anybody in this project. I'm going to keep it private to me. I'm going to click on save. Now I'm going to clear, and to clear filters, you just click on the little X right there. It shows me everything. Now, when you clicked on saved filters, you can see that you can save if you have a new search, or here's your other filter. So here's images with red and blue, and automatically it brings it up. And now I only see those images. Okay, let's clear that up. Perfect. So we've talked about filters. Oh, and the way to delete a filter, let's say you no longer want this filter, you can edit the filter by clicking on the edit or the little delete trash can there. So I'm going to click on delete. You sure you want to delete this filter? Yes. And now that filter is gone. It's no longer there. So that's how you manage your filters. Okay, next up, I'm going through my list here to make sure everything's covered. Next up, you'll notice that next to each of these boxes, when we have this box, or even these selects right there, you have checkboxes right there, right? If we go, we have a checkbox. So if I go here, I can select multiple, and at the bottom, you will notice that you can do a couple of things. For example, I can say show selected, and what that means is that it's only going to show me, imagine having 1,000 assets, right? But you only want to focus on these 3 assets right there. You can say show selected, and it only will show me those. Everything else is gone. It's not deleted, just not shown. Or I can say hide selected, and then it brings back everything else. I would change this, DatoCMS, if you're watching, I would change this from hide selected to show all, because really that's what you're doing. You're not hiding the selected. Of course, you can deselect all. You can delete all these images, and it's going to tell you, hey, you're about to delete 3 assets. So are you sure you want to do that? Now, There are permissions that will kick into effect here that if you have access to delete, and I'll cover that in just a minute. But right now, that's how you delete assets. The other thing you can do is you can tag a whole bunch of assets together at the same time. So for example, let's say I want to tag them all with the Spock tag, right? Or create a new pizza tag. And we do create pizza and it'll tag them all. I can say pizza, save, and now those three were tagged with pizza. And you can see right there, pizza, pizza, pizza. Of course, they're not real pizza, but it's okay, no problem. So that's how you manage multiple in bulk, right? You can just select as many as you want, or you can click on up here and it'll select everything for you, or deselect everything for you. So keep that in mind. Alrighty, so that is the interface here. Now let's jump into, and let's do this here. We'll go into this one. Let's make it a little bit larger. There we go. And let's jump into the editor for each of these asset types. So first of all, I'm going to jump into a PDF media asset, or yeah, PDF asset. So you can see that basically you can copy the URL, you can download this asset. So if you upload it and you want to work on it, you can download it. And then you have information at the bottom right there. So for example, if I go click on copy URL, then open up a new tab, paste it, I'm going to see the PDF, right? And that's how you get the URL that you can share the asset if you want. You also have data, automatic metadata at the bottom. So for example, the extension type, the extension, the type of file, when it was created, when it was updated. The MD5 hashtag is really important because it'll stop you from adding a file that already exists, or it'll stop a user. And I'll show you that in just a minute. We'll jump into that in just a minute. Once you uploaded it, if you deleted it and you want to re-download it, just click on the download button, and all it's going to do, it's going to download it, right? So then it becomes available for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that because we don't need it right now. Alrighty. And then you have metadata. So I'll show you right here. And this is the same for pretty much all types of assets that you store. So you can replace the asset just by clicking on browse, and basically what it does, it'll replace the file that you uploaded here with this new file. Now this will show you records using this asset, pretty explanatory, and we're going to pick one that is in use, but it'll show you any entries in DatoCMS that is using this file, so that way you don't delete it by mistake, and it will not let you delete it by mistake. Okay, then you can see who created this. Now categorization, a lot of this stuff is metadata that you can add, and sometimes it'll add it automatically, and I'll show you one that it was actually added automatically because it recognized that. And then default metadata is metadata you can add. For example, title, alternate. You can add custom data as well. So if you add new custom data, you can get a name and a value. Now the cool part here is, and we haven't covered it, so I'm going to give it a name. Like for example, we'll call this, let's say we call this administration. Yes, for whatever reason, that's important for us. Now what's important, and you can see here, and I'm going to cover this in just a minute, is localization, because a lot of this stuff can be localized. Okay, so that's a PDF. Let's look at an MP3. So an MP3, what's interesting is right here, the MP3, and I don't know if you can hear that, but the MP3 will work here when you play it. It's got a little player right there that you can preview the audio. But when I go in here, it shows me the editor, but I think there's a bug. So DatoCMS, there may be a bug with MP3, the MP3 player inside the editor. So check that out. But everything here is the same. It's exactly the same like the PDF. You have metadata, again, MD5 hash. One thing I did not cover on the previous one is you can rename a file, or you can just delete it from here, right? So if you rename it, you can call it whatever you like. Press enter, and now, oh, that's interesting. Now it showed. So that definitely is I didn't see that before. That definitely is a bug or a quirk, let's just say that. So DatoCMS, you might want to look into that. So if we click on play, you can see that it's playing there. So I like that you can see the editor. Okay, and then of course you can delete it. So this is the audio. right? This is the audio editor. And you have a copy URL and you can download the file just like the previous one. Okay, this is a video one. So let's go into it, and you have the video player here, which you can click play, and you can see that you can actually preview the video. Again, you can rename, you can delete, you have all of the metadata that I mentioned. Remember, we tagged it in bulk, added pizza. Let's remove that here. We'll remove that for now because this obviously isn't pizza. You can see who the owner is. And for videos, you can see that there's a couple of more metadata. So you can see at the bottom where you see the built-in metadata, it will vary depending on the media type you uploaded, right? So in this case, it's an MP4 and it has a dimension, so a video resolution, right? And then duration of the video, the frame rate. That's cool stuff that you can not only see here, but you can access through the API Explorer, which we'll check out in just a minute. All right, let's go into, this one is interesting. This is a PSD, and it's a PSD that has multiple layers. But DatoCMS is smart enough to recognize it. It flattens it, at least for the preview, and then you can use it as an actual image. So that's really neat that you could do that. So for example, and I'm going to go into images in just a minute because there's a whole editor here. But with images, you have other information, right? So you have dimensions, the MD5 hash. But then you have, for example, here, this is your focal point, right? So I can say, hey, whenever this image is cropped, I want the focal point to be headless creator. So we'll do that. So you can see at different sizes, if we go there, you can see at different sizes, headless creators always shown. For example, if I say I want the focal point here, then you can see what happens on the right. You can see what happens to the cropping, right? So this is just the focal point. What is the important part in this image that should be shown? So for example, you have images of people, which we'll get into that in just a minute with Spock and Kirk. You can just put it on their face, and then their face, most of the time during cropping, will be there. Okay, and again, you have all the metadata as you usually do. Now, you can click on Edit Image, and I haven't tried it with PSD, so I'm going to give it a try and see what happens. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but you can copy the URL. Now, if you copy the URL, remember, this is a PSD, so this is going to actually download. It's not going to display because it's a Photoshop file, right? So obviously, you know, you're going to put permissions around that so people can't download you don't want to make that public. All right, so let's close that up. Let's go back to here and let's click on Edit. And of course, that's what I thought was going to happen, which you cannot really edit a Photoshop file, right? So this, again, DatoCMS, something to look into. Don't allow editing let's go ahead and close this up. Discard changes. Okay, so that's Photoshop files. I do like the fact that it does recognize it, it flattens it, and it shows you the preview, but we should not have the edit button if it's not an editable image. So that's sort of an enhancement for DatoCMS. So now the final piece is the images, right? Let's get into images. So let's go into this image. And of course, you have the ability to do the focal point, right? So I want Spock to be the focal point of any cropping we do, or I want Kirk to be, and you can see what happens to the images on the right. There are the different types of images. You can reset the focal point, which will put it basically in the center. And at the bottom, you see a whole bunch of metadata again, but you also see a color palette. And this is really cool because you can then use this to change the color palette, let's say, of your website or whatever you want to do with it. And this color palette is accessible via the API Explorer. We're going to jump into that in just a minute. But that's really cool stuff to do. Now, for example, here I have some default metadata that I added. Like, for example, I added a title, an alternate text, and then I added a character called Kirk, and we'll do main character Kirk, and then we'll do, actually no, we'll do captain, and we'll do first officer or science officer Spock. Okay, so we have two pieces of metadata. Also, notice this CBS photo archive, the copyright, this smart tags, this all came in automatic when I imported this image. It actually did a lookup and it does it all automatically. You can even see here that there's some notes that came in automatically via the CBS Getty images. So that's really interesting that it'll automatically pick all that up for you. Now there are no assets that are using this image. But if I go into this, I believe pizza here. No, not the pizza. We'll go into Spock. Yeah, there you go. So you can see that this image is being used by this record. And if you have multiple records, it would show you all the records in there. And you can click on that link, which will take you to the actual record where it's being used, which is really neat because now, let's see, we have blog image. Let's create a new record. We'll go Captain Kirk from Media Manager. And I'm just going to select this one here and save. Okay, so now if we go to media, let's go back, let's close this up, let's go to this one. You should see right there, Captain Kirk blog image, that's the entry that's using it right now. So that is really useful. Okay, so that covers the editor. Now let's talk about editing images because this is something that's really cool. Again, you can copy the URL and display it and you can download it as well. But what's cool is the image editor because most of the time you would do editing in Photoshop. But with this image editor, it gives you enough power to be able to do quite a bit of stuff. So for example, let's say you want to crop it. We can click on Edit Image, and now we're in the editor. So one thing you'll find at the bottom is this is your rotation. So let's say we want to crop it only to their faces right there. Let's just say that for now. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. But I don't want it straight. I want it to be a little more rotated like that for some reason. I don't know why, but this is what I wanted. Okay, so that is my new rotation. There you go. Perfect. Let's do that. Okay, you can rotate left, flip horizontal, flip vertical, all your normal stuff. You can do aspect ratio. I have it as free, but you can do portrait, square, landscape, you know, the typical stuff. Then you can go to the filter and we can leave it as original. We can go to chrome so you can see it's a little more saturated. We can go to faded, mono, or noir, right? So let's keep it like that. I like it like that. Well, let's go back to colors actually, because I want to go to colors here and let's work with the brightness, a little bit of the contrast, give it a bit more exposure. The exposure is too much, see, because right there, if I go up, you can see how it's blown out. Let's go there and let's give it a bit more brightness. I think that's better. And now let's saturate the heck out of it because really in Star Trek, the old episodes, it was super saturated, right? That was the old color of the 60s. But I like that. I really do. I'm going to go ahead and click on save. Now what's happening is it's processing, but you can replace the current one, which I don't want to do, or you can create a copy, which I do want to do. So I'm going to create a new copy and I'm going to call this here. We're going to do saturated 60s look Spock. Oh, 60s look Spock and Kirk. Click on save. So now when we close this up, there it is. So remember, we didn't do anything. We didn't open it in Photoshop and re-uploaded it. We just worked in it in the DatoCMS editor, which I think it's great for, obviously, excuse me, for minor updates, right? This isn't full Photoshop. You don't have layers, so you know to remember when we try to open this one, which was a PSD, it wouldn't work. So obviously, if you're working with layers in a very complicated one, but if you're doing something simple, I think it's a great way to do it, right? So now we can take this, copy the URL, open it up, and now we have that image that we worked on, okay? All right, so let me tell you about the title and the metadata and all of that stuff. Remember I told you that you can actually localize it, right? So let's actually go into, actually, before I go into localization, I want to talk to you about real quick about the MD5 hash. Why is that important? Let me show you. I'm going to take this image. I'm going to download it. Okay, so let me get it here. Let me close that up. Now I'm going to close this up. And I'm going to go ahead and say upload new asset. I'm going to re-upload it. And in fact, let's rename it to Spock, just Spock. Right? I'm going to re-upload it. Click on open. And because the MD5 matches to a current one that's in the media manager, it's telling you, hey, I understand this one is named Spock and this one is named Spock's Kirk's, but the MD5 match the hash. So are you sure you want to keep uploading the new file, or do you want to just skip it because it's a duplicate? And of course, we're going to go, hey, it's a duplicate, forget it. And that saved you. So this I like because it really does protect you for single source of truth, that you can use that MD5. Now I'm going to take that same file, and all I'm doing is running it on a compression app real quick. So I actually changed it, right? I compressed it. So the size went down. Now I'm going to upload it, and I'm going to show you what happened. All I did is compressed it, I didn't change anything else, but the compression does change the MD5 hash, and now it's uploading. See, it doesn't know that this one is the same as that one. So the MD5 is for exact same images. Even if you change it by 1 pixel or recompress it, you'll notice that this one, the dimension is 3000 by 2256, but 265 kilobytes. And this one, same dimension, but it's 3 megabytes, because I just ran it through a compression app. That's all I did. But that changed the MD5 hash, this one right here. So keep that in mind. But it is a great little thing to use to make sure you're not having duplicates. Alrighty, so that takes care of that. What I wanted to show you next is go into the metadata, and you can see how the metadata only shows me one field, right? How do I change this for Spanish or Chinese or any other localization? Well, I don't have localization enabled here. I'm gonna go to settings, and I'm gonna go to settings here, and I'm gonna add Spanish. Go ahead and add Spanish, and let's add French. Why not? Click on save. And now I'm going to go back to media. Now I'm going to click on an image, and it doesn't matter. You can click on anything because metadata is just the metadata. But now when you click on, you will see that I have language here. That wasn't there before. And you can select. So for example, we'll put in title in English, alt in English. Click on save. Now I'm going to go to Spanish, and it'll be empty. So I'll go title in Spanish. We'll just do title in Spanish, alt. Click on save, and French. Title in French. Save. So now if we go back to English, you see the English, Spanish, and French. And notice how I don't have any custom data here, but in English I have these two. So you would have to copy these over and be able to translate them. But keep that in mind, that you're able to do that. Once you have localization turned on, you're able to do that and translate your metadata. Now that only works for the default metadata. It does not, there is no localization for the categorization, the creator, any of this stuff. It's mainly for the default metadata. Okay. The other thing I wanted to show you, oh yeah, and also localization works for, so let me show you, we're here in English. I'm going to put the focal point, actually, to make it a little bit more realistic. Let's say we have Spock. So Spock, we're going to say Spock is super popular in the US. We'll just pretend for now. So in the US, I want to make sure that if we crop, Spock is the center of attention. But when I go to any Spanish-speaking country, Kirk is really the most popular one. So I want to make sure that if we crop, Kirk is the focus of attention. So we'll click on save. And in French, in France, we'll say that, yeah, we'll say Kirk. I think Kirk actually is super popular in France. But notice that when I select English, look at the focal point here. I'll go to English, and now it's in Spock. And actually, let's go to French, and we'll put it, you know what? We'll say, you know what? The French are in between. They like both. So now we go to English, it's Spock. We go to Spanish, it's Kirk. And for the French, it'll be, when you crop, it'll be in between. So for localization, you can localize your default metadata and your focal point, which is really nice, okay? All right, you cannot localize manual tags. I wish we could do that, where we can say Spock here, for example, if I wanted to, but in English, it would be a different one. You can't. I mean, it's only one. So that, to me, would be great to have that up here, or have the ability to localize it down here. All right, so that takes care of localization. What I wanted to show you next is permissions. So it really depends on if you are the creator that you can delete it. If you're not the creator, you have to have permissions to be able to delete it. Also, the entry cannot be used, I'm sorry, the media asset can't be used in an entry if you're going to delete it. It has to be out of the entry. So the way you can configure permissions for assets, if you go to settings, it's based on the role. And you go to content permissions, and you'll see your standard roles plus whatever custom roles you set up. Like I have a data manager role. So under asset permissions, you'll see the ability to add, like for example, right now I can say any actions if created by anyone, or if created by other users. Or I can say this role only has the ability to view assets created if created by other users or other roles or anyone. So you can add multiple rules here to put governance around your media manager. So that's really important to really analyze your needs and make sure you have the right governance around your media. So, but just remember settings, content permissions, roles, and that's where you set up your permissions for your assets. Okay, finally, well, not finally, next up, and then we'll do finally, but next up, I wanted to show you under settings again, there's this project usage or usages. Let's discard this for now. And you can see right here that you can get some stats on your project, for example, but here you can see top referrers for asset. You can change the report, and you can see top requested assets. You can see top IPs for assets. So let's go to top requested assets, and you'll see a variety of them. You'll see all your assets, which are the ones that are requested the most. You can even download this report as a CSV, so you can analyze your assets and which ones are being used the most or requested the most. So that's a good place for you to, as an admin, go in there and check out how your assets are being used. So finally, what I wanted to show you, as we have media, we have a variety of media. And remember, I told you about this is really neat right there, the color palette of this image, is you can access pretty much everything through the API Explorer. So let's open up the Explorer. We'll go ahead and close this up. Let's clear all this up. And we're going to go to all uploads. And let's just start by selecting only the title and the URL. We'll select, and you can see here all of the medias, or all the media with the title, and some of them don't have a title, right? We didn't have the title. So why don't we select also, let's see, where do we have file name? There it is, file name. So let's select file name, click on, okay, and there you go, Spock Kirk's edited. Remember the edit, we edited it once, so it'll actually named it as edited. You can change that with the rename link in the media, but that's how it names it. Anyway, so you can see that you can pull all your media using the API Explorer, no problem. But there's a whole bunch of more stuff you can do. Like, for example, if we go into colors, let's remove the title. We'll keep the URL. Let's remove the URL for now. It doesn't matter. We'll have the file name. But let's go to colors. And I want to see alpha, blue, green. Actually, let's remove that. Let's just do hex. I want to see the colors hex. So you can see the color palette for each of these images, right? So you can see hex. It shows me. Now I can also see the alpha, blue, green. Let's move hex and red. So you can see it broken down like that, which is really neat too. But now you can take this programmatically and manipulate the images outside of DatoCMS. And there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm not going to cover here, but for example, I can get the focal point that's important, right? So here's the focal point. And actually, let's get rid of colors. We'll leave file name and we'll leave focal point. And let's do locale and let's do France. And we'll click on play. And we've got, let's see, which one was the one? Let's go back to, let's save this. Let's go to media. I think it was this one, which is Spock Kirk's, right? English, Spanish. No, maybe it wasn't this one. It was the edited one. English. Oh, you know what? We probably didn't save it. So let's do this. English. We'll just do this. English. Save. Spanish. Save. And let's do French. French. Save. Oh, and the focal point did save, so we're good on that. So if we go to English, there's Spock. If we go to Spanish, Kirk. And if we go to French, the middle. Perfect. Okay, we're good on that. So let's go back to the API. Wait, that was this one, Spock, right? It was short-term memory here. Yeah. So Spock.jpg. So let's go to the API Explorer. Let's rerun this. And then Spock.jpg. So we're getting, let's close this up. Let's see if this works. And we'll go to the locale. We're getting France for Spock. 0.5, 0.25. Now if we get Spanish, 0.73, 0.26. And if we get English, that's more in, that was more in on the right. And now if we get English, it should be more on the left. 0.31, 0.25. So you can see how you can get all of these metadata that you customize on the front end through the back end and then do whatever you like with it. And they have a huge API too. You have responsive image parameters. You have image X parameters because they use the image X on the background that you can do a lot of stuff through the API Explorer. All right, that's it. I think that's it. I think I've covered pretty much everything that I could cover. They do have this document on DatoCMS in their learning knowledge base, but pretty much I covered a lot more than what they show there, but you can go check that out if you have any further questions. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any further questions, as always, marcelo@headlesscreator.com. Like I've always asked you, go get your free account at headlesscreator.com. You'll have access to this and a whole bunch of stuff more. If you already have one, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We have one more lesson for DatoCMS coming up in 2 days, this Wednesday. For those of you on demand, it'll be there already by the time you probably watch this. So anyway, thank you so much. If we don't see you again, have a wonderful end of 2021 and see you in 2022. Cheers, everybody.